Hi, this is Steve.
This is Bob.
This is Jay.
We are Alpha Quadrant 6, a science fiction review show.
And today, guys, we're going to talk about a movie called Passengers. This goes back to what year?
2016.
2016. And it's funny, because it came out that long ago, there are actually comments that we have that have, the world has changed since then. So we're going to have like more of a futuristic comment about this movie. All right, overall, I liked the movie. I enjoyed it. But the big problem that I had with it was there was so many things that it did strange, wrong.
Yeah.
It took me out a lot, and I was really like overanalyzing in the bad way. But the actors did a good job.
Yeah, it was Chris
sets
Pratt
were great.
and Jennifer Lawrence.
Yeah,
they did a great job. Especially Jennifer Lawrence did a fantastic job.
Production values were off the hook.
Eye candy was great.
It was so expensive. Unfortunately, they didn't even make back all of their money, including like marketing and promotion.
Yeah.
So it's got a bad rap, but this is a thoroughly enjoyable sci-fi movie with some aspects. They really do make an attempt here and there to do real science and stay away from some of the tropes, although there's some problems, but they're interesting to talk about, so let's do it.
Well, I had a slightly different take. I wouldn't say it was a good science fiction movie. I thought it was a good movie. The storytelling was fine. The acting
enjoyable
was good,
maybe would be better.
But
there was lazy writing, though.
The writing was so lazy that it constantly took me out of the movie, and that was a problem. It actually interfered with my enjoyment of the movie. It was that bad. And we're going to get into a lot of detail.
That's
true. For sure. I want to just comment that Jennifer Lawrence did a magnificent job.
Yeah.
Her acting was fantastic. She really sold
it.
The emotional part of this movie.
Yeah.
Which was the best part of the movie.
So we're going to start, Bob, with propulsion.
So this has to do with the propulsion of the ship, Avalon, which I loved. It's one of my favorite characters in the movie. This was obviously a critical component to the entire movie. So this is a sleeper ship. So you've got everybody is in suspended animation, so nobody is awake for the bulk of the entire journey.
And there was about 5,200, 5,300 people
about
in
5,000 passengers, 238 crew, something like that.
Yep.
Right. 120-year ship time journey.
Right. So now a sleeper ship is hugely problematic technologically and in many ways, but it is far, and I'll give you a third, far less problematic than a generation ship, which has so many technological problems. I think we will never ever do it in the future.
Interstellar travel,
right?
Yeah.
It just makes first off, it's cruel. It's totally cruel to subject these generations of people. All right, whatever. So this is a sleeper ship. It's beautiful. I love how in the initial scene of the movie, it's rotating. It looks like a rotating ring, but then as you go to the side, it's clearly more complex than just helical. A ring. Yeah, kind of helical. So my favorite part of this was the propulsion. The writers stayed away from the tropes of warp drives and gravity plating.
FTL,
FTL, all that stuff was not there. He wanted to make it more realistic. So he went with an ion engine, which is absolutely current modern technology. We have ion engines powered by a fusion reactor, which is essentially soft science, right? That's something that we will have. Nobody doubts that we're going to have them. They might not be practical, but we will have them at some point in the near future. The problem comes when those two technologies working together, the fusion and ion engine, how they work, how they come together and work, and what they can do. That's where the problem is. Now, if you guys remember, an ion engine essentially accelerates ions out the back and gives a slow push, a slow thrust. The thrust is so low that if you put a piece of paper on your hand, that's about the force we're talking about. But in frictionless space, it's additive, so it builds up over time. So thrust is very low, but efficiency, specific impulse, is huge. Weeks, months, maybe even years of very slow propulsion that can build up to incredible speeds. But that said, this fails in three specific ways. One is, of course, the tyranny of the rocket equation.
Yeah.
The fuel required for this ship is beyond the beyond. Worst case scenario, it would be 1,000,000 times more. If you used this ion engine for a good thrust, you would go through fuel so fast that you would need hundreds or thousands or millions of times the mass of the ship. So that's the worst case scenario. Best case scenario, where the ions are traveling at very, very, very fast, you need less fuel, but still you would need anywhere from 5 to 10 times the ship's mass, dry mass, in fuel.
Yeah.
Clearly, that wasn't in that ship. You would need a much bulkier ship. So
and they weren't collecting fuel or anything.
no, yeah, people have talked about it was kind of like a Bussard ramjet collecting fuel in space. There was no hint of that I saw in.
There was no
in the,
visual or verbal
right.
hint of that anywhere.
Right.
But yeah, I think maybe people were speculating that maybe they had to be collecting hydrogen as they go
Right.
to solve the rocket equation there. But you would need like a mile wide, collector, and even then, like the back pressure that it would produce would be more problem than it was worth.
Right. Yeah.
It's not really practical.
The latest numbers show that a Bussard ramjet would not work.
All right, so that ship, on the fuel that could have had aboard, it wouldn't have been able to do anything it's doing.
No.
And so again, this gets to my core problem. Every step of the way, the writers made a decision that maximized the eye candy and that was convenient for the storytelling, without ever giving any deference to science or physics
Right.
or even internal consistency. It was just we need this to work right now, so it works. We need
Right.
this not to work right now, so it doesn't work. We need this to be the case, so that's the case.
Okay.
And there was just never any. They didn't red team it. They didn't go through the script. Would this actually happen? And would a ship like this actually function this way? And let's do some back of the envelope calculations, which I did. And there's no way to make them make sense.
Yeah, but let's go over, though, the two other major failings of the propulsion. There were two other major failings. The second is that the ions that are accelerating out of the back end of the ship, the exhaust of the ship, is tens of thousands of kilometers per second. So that's a good velocity, but it's not high enough. You have to get the exhaust velocity at ultra relativistic speeds, close to the speed of light, which ion drives do not do. They do not do that. You would need so much energy that it would no longer be an ion engine. If you could give ultra relativistic energy to every particle that shoots out, it would no longer be an ion engine. I don't know what it would be, but it would be something that you wouldn't describe as an ion engine. So that's a failure right there.
If you were being generous, though, you could say, all right, they're using some advanced propulsion. They may be using the term ion engine loosely, but the bottom line is, of course, they would have to be accelerating it at greater than 0.5 light speed, because they said that's how fast the ship is going.
Right.
Your propulsion's got to be going faster than the ship is going.
Well, not in all cases, but go ahead. That's fine.
But
I know what you mean.
And again, in order to even, get the fuel equation from millions to only tens of times the mass of the ship, you need to be going at greater than 99% of the speed of light. Whatever. You need to get as close to the speed of light for that exhaust as possible.
Now saying, Bob, you're saying this because the ship would need to be pushing that much at that speed to get them up to half the speed of light.
You would need a higher exhaust velocity to get it to half the speed of light.
So
you are not getting that speed with an ion engine, even a super advanced one.
The faster the propulsion is going, each particle,
the exhaust,
the more momentum you get out of it, and so the less of it you need. Right. So that's where the fuel equation comes in.
Okay.
So if you were accelerating something 10 times faster out at the exhaust, you get 10 times the momentum out of it. You need 1/10 the fuel. But so you've really, really pushed things, relativistically. That's the only way to have interstellar travel. Really, you need that kind of system.
So the other problem is that so we've got that
for a rocket,
the exhaust velocity is just not high enough. Okay, and then the third one is one of the classic issues with nuclear electric propulsion is what we have here, right? You've got a reactor. You have reactor heat that then creates electrical energy from the heat and the thermal energy, and from there you can power the ion drives, right? So that's what's happening. So now the third one is nuclear electric propulsion has heat management issues. Because a lot of that heat, you got to do something with it. And getting rid of heat in space is not as easy as you would think. You think, oh, it's a vacuum, it's super cold, pump the heat out there. No, there's no convection, there's no conduction. You can only get rid of heat through thermal radiation, infrared radiation. And that's really hard, which means that ship would need radiators to emit this thermal radiation that would be huge and obvious. So you would see them, they would be unmissable. They would dominate the ship's landscape. These huge radiators to get rid of all that heat. Did not see that.
That would have
been
been cool to have that in the design.
It would.
That's one of those things. Like if you talk to experts and say what would this look like, it would have to have huge radiating fins. Like that's a cool design element. That would make the ship look really awesome.
Would make it look
you
cool.
could do a lot with that. So those are the three major failures of this propulsion. I really loved how they tried to use real technology like ion engines and fusion reactors. Totally excellent and realistic. But what they were able to do with it basically not possible.
Now you could say that they could have used exhaust to cool the engine, which they do at one point. But then, if that's your main way of cooling the engine is exhausting hot fluid of some type or another, that's a lot more stuff that you're ejecting.
Right.
Right. Now you could say that that is also the propellant. All right, but then if that were the propellant, then why would it have a problem with overheating at the end anyway?
Yeah, I don't know if that works because with the nuclear,
I don't think it works. I'm just saying theoretically, the
a
heat's got to go
nuclear
somewhere.
thermal engine
Yes.
reactor is much better because that heat, the heat from the reactor,
Is the propellant.
directly heats the propellant, and that's what gets that's what
It carries
gets
the heat
expelled.
away as well as accelerated.
Nuclear
propellant.
electric does not do that, so you
That
got
was
to
just a
deal.
bad choice. It should have been a nuclear propulsion, a nuclear
Well,
thermal.
but then that wouldn't last as long. I mean,
Yeah.
even the problem, Steve, is that you have to have onboard fuel, and
Yeah.
that is the problem. If you're going interstellar, if you have onboard fuel, that is hugely problematic. The
You're not
rocket
gonna go
equation,
120 years.
the rocket equation is going to smack you in the face, left and right. So that is the problem. You would need, if you want to go interstellar, you need something like maybe beamed technology would
Yeah.
be much more feasible. Even antimatter engines, you got to have onboard antimatter, and that's going to run out at some point. That's the problem.
Mm-hmm. All right, so there's a couple. I did run some numbers just out of interest. If they say straight up, we're going half the speed of light, so we have
Yep,
that as a fixed point. So if you're going half the speed of light, what's the time dilation factor?
1.15.
1.155. So that means that if the ship side's 120 years, ship time 120 years, the Earth time would have been 138 years, and so that's all right. You could deal with that.
But that assumes the
That assumes
average,
you're going-
the
that's
average
the
is
average velocity.
which wouldn't really be the case
It'd be
because you got to
actually-
accelerate
yeah.
and decelerate. But okay, that's fine.
So one thing, I know we're going to be talking about gravity, but the acceleration of the ship did not produce any noticeable acceleration due to gravity for anyone inside the ship, right? So that it couldn't have been accelerating that much because you would have felt it. But I did some calculations. If it was accelerating at 0.1 g, which I think you would feel, right? It wouldn't be big.
But is that reasonable acceleration for an
No.
ion engine?
No, it isn't.
It's way
It
too
isn't.
high.
And you could retcon it by saying maybe they had booster rockets in the early stages of the flight to get them up to faster speeds or whatever.
You can, but I mean, even
Yeah.
then, there would have been an elaborate system that we did not see. There would
like a
have been
hybrid nuclear, electric, and chemical to
Yeah,
get
they
the
might have-
thrust.
Yeah, they might
Which
have.
we're talking about now. NASA's
But then
talking about now.
they probably, you could say maybe they were accelerating at 2G for 5 years, and then now they're just using the fusion engine for course correction or whatever. But they also, the thing is though, they have to decelerate at the other end,
Flip
right?
and burn, flip and
You have
burn.
to flip and burn, so it only solves half the problem. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It doesn't solve the flip and burn problem. But if you were accelerating at 1.1 g, it would have taken you 5.59 years to get up to half the speed of light, assuming no resistance. That's just from pure
Yeah.
acceleration. If
Okay.
it was 0.01 g, which is probably more realistic for an
Yeah.
ion engine, even that's a lot for an ion engine.
Yeah.
And then you could argue we wouldn't be seeing the acceleration. That's 55 years, which is of course way too long because
Yep.
they're already there at 30 years out. So being there at 30 years out means they either needed a huge acceleration at some point, or they were accelerating at more than 0.01 g, like 2, 3, 4% of
Which means they were throwing out,
Of
even if
G.
they were doing it with a nuclear electric engine, it means that they were throwing out so much
Crazy
mass,
fuel and
so much
propellants.
mass they were expelling that
Yeah.
they would have needed the fuel as large as a solar system, kind of crazy.
They're not,
amount.
like orders of
Impossible.
magnitude off. Yeah, and the bottom line is there's no way you're going to have a hotel like this massive
Yeah.
ship with all that space and all those amenities for interstellar travel. You if you're going to do a sleeper ship, it is going to be the most space and weight efficient ship you could possibly design, and 99.9% of that ship is fuel. That's the
Yes.
only way you're going to get
Yes.
interstellar distances like that.
Or even more than 99.9.
If you're carrying your fuel, the
Right.
only other way is to not carry your fuel, right? And so that's why a ramjet comes up, but that doesn't work for lots of reasons. I think the best extrapolation of current technology is some kind of fusion or antimatter matter engine, but the bulk of your acceleration and deceleration is going to be light sails, right? It's the only way to really do it.
All right, guys, so let's rate the gestalt of the propulsion for the movie passengers for the ship Avalon, even though there was some good crunchy bits in there of ion engines
Yeah.
and fusion, which is cool and real. What's your take on it? All right, what's the overall? It's a
Whopper.
It's an ugly whopper too.
It's-
It is.
They blew
It's
it.
big giant whopper.
They blew it.
Unforced error.
but the reasons why they're wrong are fascinating.
All right, now we're going to talk about the ship's shield. So if you take a look at, if you saw the movie, or you take a look at some images, you'll see that in the front of the ship there's this big, it's a force field. There's zero discussion about it. We have very little information about it, if any at all. We just know that it's an energy field and it's blocking, impact of rock and debris or whatever.
Kinetic
it is.
impact. It's kinetic impact, blocking it.
This is a very easy one to discuss because the fact is, scientifically, that's an impossibility. We have no concept of a mechanism that would be able to not only create a shield like that, but the energy required would be, orders and orders of magnitude more than we can even conceptualize, making. Like, it was certainly not coming from that fusion reactor. So it's just a straight up impossibility for that ship to happen. So again,
it's sci-fi movie magic.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
This is, and often we make it a gimme. But here's the thing, and this is where the lazy writing comes in. They make the shields in order to make something else that was completely unnecessary and unscientific work. So here you have a ship going at half the speed of light, hitting a debris field, an asteroid field, which the probability of that is almost zero, right? If you're in interstellar space, running into some random rocks is really unlikely.
it's not an asteroid field. It is a debris field.
It's a debris field of something where you've got to be
Two celestial objects had to hit
in
very
interstellar space.
Very recently. Yeah.
Very recently in interstellar space, and you happen to run dead smack into it. But the thing is, the ship relative to those rocks was like going hundreds of miles an
Yeah, it didn't
hour,
seem fast to me.
maybe at most thousands of miles an hour.
Yep.
It wasn't going at half the speed of light. If that ship hit even a pebble at half the speed of light, it would have been vaporized.
Yep.
I mean, the kinetic energy imparted to that ship would have absolutely vaporized it. I mean, the only thing you could argue is that it would have just made a clean hole all the way through it. But I don't even know if that...
What would survive? What would survive the trip?
Yeah, it's hard to know.
It would vaporize.
So they had to say, okay, well, we're going to run into stuff. We'll have shields, because we need shields because that we run into stuff as we're plowing through the interstellar medium at half the speed of light. No, you don't. There's no way you could survive that anyway. You have to. So the only thing that would really work is if you have a pathway that you've already cleared out, right?
Like, there should have been a ship that was,
Or this is just it's a space lane. This is like they've cleared out the pathway
Right.
between Earth and Homestead 2,
Right.
or at least most of the way. The corridor at which you're going half the speed of light has got to be pretty much free of debris. Not only debris, it's got to be largely free of hydrogen. If you're plowing through hydrogen, interstellar hydrogen,
Right.
that creates enough resistance, which is why, ironically, ships have to be aerodynamic, even when they're flying through the vacuum of space, because there's enough hydrogen there
only at high speeds, though.
at
yeah.
relativistic speeds, at half the speed of light.
you're gonna need it. Yeah.
That would give a limit to how fast the ship could go. It would be putting back pressure on it.
Right.
It would be significant. No shield. The shields make that worse, right? Because that's just you're feeling all of that back pressure.
Yeah.
Unless it's vaporizing everything, including hydrogen.
It would have to be like you would have to have lasers vaporizing stuff in front of you. You know what I mean? So you doesn't even hit the ship.
It'd be a multi-tiered strategy. You would need lasers going in front, but you would also need a physical barrier like rock or metal that is designed to absorb tremendous
or
impacts.
blade. Yeah.
Exactly, and then but eventually that would wear down, and you could get far at a decent speed using that technique. But half the speed of light, that would be very, very tough, especially in a big object like they hit. That's a mission ender. It is over. Everyone is dead if you're hitting that size object at any appreciable fraction of the speed of light.
Seriously, I mean, this wouldn't have been as visually cool, which is why in every
slowed
step
it
of
down.
the way, they're like, let's make this visually cool, forget physics, forget science. But honestly, all they needed, no shields, was just a grain of sand plowing through that ship at half the speed of light would have done tremendous damage.
Yeah.
That's all they needed, and that would have created the entire situation that the plot required.
So again, this is like, if we really think about it, like look at Star Trek with their force fields and a lot. Like, this is really just fantasy.
It's fantasy. It's science fantasy.
That all said, I'm sitting on my couch, beginning of the movie. I see the force field and I see it being pelted. I was so excited because
it's better than ignoring it entirely.
Yes, it's ignored basically all the time. I mean, who even gives it any time for an episode or a movie? It's like Star Trek has deflector shields, but that's it. It's something that's not discussed. The fact that they actually showed it and showing that it's needed and it's critical
Right.
made me very happy. Sure,
But they got all the details
They got a
wrong.
lot of the details wrong. But and the fact, especially the fact that it can't exist as the force
Right,
field is,
yeah.
is
Yeah, yeah.
pure
It's an
pure
impossibility.
magic.
Yeah,
Still
we-
made me happy.
Let's talk about what we're going to rank this. But I would say, like, I would rank just the existence of shields. That's a classic sci-fi gimme.
Yes.
But the way it was used in this movie, to
It's
me,
a whopper.
is a whopper.
Without a doubt.
It's
All right,
big
ready?
whopper.
We're gonna do the vote now. I want you all to really think about this before we go there, because this is gonna be whopper heavy, movie that we're rating here. But let's just do it. Ready, guys? It's a whopper. Okay.
All right. Shields are a whopper. All right.
It really though in
But
the
thank
end,
you for having
I
a
agree
shield.
with Bob. I agree with Bob. The fact
I was
that
like, all right, they should get an A for effort. But
Absolutely.
still, it was poorly executed.
your observation, Steve, that they created a thing that they created the
Something they didn't
debris
need to
field.
solve a problem that they
I know.
wouldn't have. Yeah.
It is all for the looks.
All right. Seems like a small piece of the story, but it just so many things about it. So at one point, the ship, the Avalon, swings around the star Arcturus. Again, creates beautiful eye candy where our two protagonists get to sit in the observation deck being bathed in radiation, which we won't even talk about. And then they swing around Arcturus, which is gorgeous. But of course, so the thing is, if you're on an interstellar trip, you would never come that close to a star by chance, right? Of
course.
So that had to be deliberate. And why would you ever do that deliberately? The only possible reason was that you could think of is that you're using that for a gravity assist or a course correction.
Right.
But why would you need either of those things on such a long interstellar journey? Why don't you just aim at where you want to go? Why would you aim over there and then swing around a star?
It just makes
Right.
the path longer.
Or
Right.
aim it where it's going to be.
Aim,
But yeah,
that's what I mean. Aim it where you need to be. Like
Right.
you're rendezvousing with your destination. Now, so then I said, okay, well, let's say they're doing a gravity assist. Does that make any sense? The basics of gravity assists are, if let's say we do this all the time. We send probes around Mars or whatever, and if you're going in the same direction as Mars is turning, you accelerate as you approach the planet, a close approach, and then you decelerate. But you get a little bit of extra speed.
You steal some momentum,
You steal
right?
some momentum from the planet. Of course, if the planet's turning the other way, you lose some speed. It
Right.
slows you down. But you need to have rotation relative to something, right? That's why planets work, because it's relative to the system that you're in.
Right.
Could the same thing work for a star? Theoretically, yes.
Why not?
It would have to be rotating relative to the galaxy, let's say. And so, yeah, okay. So theoretically, that could work. But would gravity assist work at half the speed of light, though?
Yes.
And that is
that's
a thing.
huge problem.
I think that's hugely problematic.
problem.
And wouldn't they?
I think the answer is no.
There was a few things I thought were wrong with this. Like, first of all, if they were going half the speed of light, they wouldn't be flying past the sun in such a lazy, slow-looking way.
All right.
Were they
I thought
zoomed
of-
in? Were they zoomed in?
I thought that too. But have you ever seen the video of traveling through the solar system at the speed of light?
pathetically low.
It's
so-
not as fast as you think it is, because we're so used to seeing starships flying at warp speed.
eight and a third minutes to get to
It
the
actually
Earth,
seems like
to
really
Earth.
that's
but-
the speed
but
of
it
light. It
wouldn't-
looks slow.
But they were right on the sun.
You think that. That's because
They
the
could have
sun-
been zoomed in. We don't
But
know
also-
what, we
it
don't
was
know
a
what
red
the
giant.
it was a yellow giant, probably yellow dwarf. But it's Arcturus, whatever Arcturus is. They said they
Yeah.
named the star. But the thing is, you were a lot farther away from the star than you think. It's like when you see that mountain in the distance, you think you're really close to the mountain.
Yep.
It's really much farther away because you underestimate how big it is.
Mm-hmm.
So they were still pretty far from the star. But even then, the other thing is getting that close to the chromosphere of a star probably would have created, again, more back pressure than any boost they would have gotten from a gravity assist.
And also,
you don't
could-
want to swing by a star at half the speed of light. It just makes absolutely no,
Could
sense.
the ship even, from structural integrity, handle the forces that
Yeah.
that star would have put
Yeah,
on
because
it?
again, when you're going through a gravity well, you're just going through space, right?
Curved space.
You're just going through curved space.
But
You're not feeling a force. The only forces
Tidal
you feel
forces,
are tidal
tidal
forces.
forces.
So that's a good question. What would the tidal forces have been on that ship at the distance that they were from the star? For a ship that big, it might not have been insignificant. The tidal.
well, I
forces.
mean, yeah. So the front of the ship would experience a different level of gravitational pull than the back
Than the
end,
back
because it was
end.
assuming it was farther away and not more of a
Yeah.
sideways thing.
Either
but
way.
but to be fair to the writer has spoken directly about this scene,
Yeah.
and he said, yes, it was showy. He described it as a showy scene, and that's exactly what it was.
Yes. Oh
It
my
was
God, he
show.
admitted it.
He absolutely.
He said they
he's
did it
like-
for eye candy, and
he was like, it was a
yeah.
beautiful scene, and he said he admits it was extremely problematic in terms of scientific accuracy, and could you even get help from another star, and depending on which way it was moving, or or
very
spinning.
unlikely that
God,
it would have
just-
been in the right orientation to even help you.
Right. So
is
he-
it
so
worse?
he-
Is it worse that they knew, the writer knew? I mean, that to me,
I mean-
that just clicks it right to Whopper.
It was a whopper.
Oh yeah, that was absolutely why, and he absolutely admits it. So I mean, but you imagine the compromise you have to make when you're making a movie. You got to get people in their seats going wow, or scientific accuracy. I know we're more on the side of scientific accuracy.
I
of
hear
course.
you. So for
But you
this
could do both.
instance,
You could do
in
both.
this instance,
I mean, you could do.
I can forgive everything I just said for a gorgeous eye candy scene
Right.
in a
Yeah.
movie. It's cinema. I get it, but still, it was scientifically it was a whopper. But at least they knew what they were doing, and they said we're going to do it for the eye candy.
Yeah.
Okay, I could live with that.
Yeah.
and that in and of itself would not have. I
Yeah.
mean, it takes me out a little bit because I'm thinking, why are they swearing by a star? That's highly
But,
problematic.
yeah, but it was over fast. It was over fast. I wasn't thinking about it
wasn't
much after that scene.
That was not a deal killer for me for the movie.
Yeah.
That was like that was for
get
eye
it.
candy. I get it. Yeah,
All right, let's vote on this then.
but still, I think swinging around Arcturus in the middle of a journey is a
Yeah,
total
definitely.
whopper. All right.
We are moving on now to
Not
Gravity.
a gimme for narratively. It's I'm a little bit on the fence, but it's a whopper. But I get it, and I'm happy.
It's a whopper
okay.
with cause.
Yeah, sure. All right, guys. The next topic is going to be gravity.
Mm-hmm.
Gravity in the movie. Gravity in the movie. They specifically stayed away from gravity plating. That is
artificial
basically
gravity of any kind.
ubiquitous. This is gravity that was created by rotation, centrifugal force, causing you to experience essentially an analog of gravity. That's the
And it
base-
works.
And it works. It's realistic.
If
it's
you're big
great.
enough, and the ship probably was big
Yeah,
enough.
the ship was big enough so there the Coriolis forces wouldn't be dramatic differences between the head and the feet, because you don't want to have if you have a short radius, then it's going to you stand up and you get dizzy, you throw things and it goes weird. So yeah, that was great. I loved it. We need more artificial rotational based gravity in science fiction. Let's talk about where that failed.
Yeah.
It failed when the water came sloshing out of the pool and gravity disappears. For that to happen, you have this huge chunk of the ship, most of the mass of the ship, I would say, rotating, or a lot of it anyway, rotating to cause this artificial gravity. For that to stop, it just wouldn't happen, because if it did, all that energy would just rip the ship apart. So and you want it to spin freely, right? Because once you get that spinning in frictionless space, it's going to spin forever.
you don't want to
would-
use energy to keep it spinning.
Right. So the idea that it could stop immediately is ridiculous. But again, they needed a dramatic
needed it to
scene of the
happen.
water and her swimming in the water, or them. I love the scene where they're running and then whoa,
Yeah.
and then
like,
that was
what
great.
does that mean?
I love it.
That implies though that it did stop.
Right. It did stop, which sure, it could stop, but it would rip itself apart. I mean, it wasn't and would never be designed to stop on a dime. So that was a failure. They did for probably one of the more dramatic scenes in the movie. They were beautiful, but that's not going to happen.
Yeah. Again,
But
they specifically decided, screw physics. I want this to happen. We'll just make it happen.
also, their tether gravity was great, because remember in the movie Gravity?
Yeah.
With Clooney, Sandra Bullock has the ship and is holding onto his tether, and he's like, let me go, and that's why he dies, because
Yes.
she lets him go.
Makes no sense.
Makes no sense, because there was no force pulling him away from her.
Yeah.
All he had to do, like was done in Passengers, is give a little tug and he'll come right to her.
Yeah.
It was like they did that scene just to say screw you, Gravity, because that was
They handled the
that was
tether properly.
egregious, an
Yeah.
egregious scene in the movie Gravity. But just another good scene of real orbital mechanics being realistic. So
But
Yeah.
this is a repeat thing here in the movie. They handle gravity really well because they have the ship spinning and it's big enough to do it all right,
Yep.
and everything looks good. But then again, when it comes into like, all right, we need to do something dramatic here, we want to make a cool scene or whatever, then they just throw all that out the window.
Yep. But in this case, I'm definitely leaning towards hard science, because that was a
Well, it would've
minor
been
an aberration that doesn't.
It wasn't so minor. I think it was egregious
But
because,
do you think it brings it over to Whopper territory again?
well,
Or gimme.
it's not definitely
Not a
It's
gimme.
not a gimme, but all right, it's the thing is, if you are rotating the ship, they have the outer ring rotating around the inner ring. Why? Why not just have the whole ship rotate? Why does that center section need to not be
They
rotating?
never addressed it.
They never. Do you need 0 g there, or it wouldn't be really 0? It'd be whatever the g force of acceleration is.
Right.
Right. Well,
Right.
Makes no sense. And even if all right, for some reason you want like the outer ring to be under rotation and the inner ring not, as Bob was saying, if you suddenly locked those two things together, the outer part of the ship, which is way more mass, would have dragged the center with it. The center part of the ship wouldn't have stopped the outer part of the ship. It wouldn't have happened. It would have the momentum would have just made the whole ship continue to rotate.
Right.
Now, if they for some reason, and again they had a built-in explanation, the ship is glitching. Right. That's like
Systems are
the
failing
ship is
left and right.
glitching, which means you could make anything freaking happen that you want to have happen and blame it on the glitch. We'll talk about that more later in a bit. But they really should have shown was rockets actively slowing down the rotation of the ship.
I didn't think of that.
And that could have happened over a couple of seconds. Doesn't matter. That it would have been perfectly.
Well, why do that?
Because the ship needs to be able to stop rotating for some reason, right? For whatever. And so it probably has that system built into it.
Ah, yeah, that's a good point.
And it's like, the ship glitched. It fires the retro rockets to stop the rotation, and then the gravity goes up, and then they have to kick them in again to get the rotation going back again. So, again, if this is the same answer.
That's true.
All the way through the script. It's like if they had a team of people who were picking through the script for scientific accuracy, they could have fixed all of these problems without sacrificing much in the way of plot or eye candy. There's a couple of things, like the Arcturus I get. But other than that, they could have fixed everything if they weren't lazy writers. That was just lazy writing. And it's one of those things, like the more I think about it, the less forgiving I become about the writers of this movie.
Yeah, it's not like they didn't have the budget. They had a hell of a budget. It's $350 million, I think, in total for everything.
The three of us can riff and fix all these problems. They couldn't have had to put a team together to fix these problems.
It wouldn't have been that hard or even that expensive.
At least most
really.
of them. They could have cleared up a lot
This
of
is
them.
just inertia. Like they screwed up inertia, rotational inertia. That's bad.
Yeah. That's,
right, so
that's
what do you
tipping
think,
me over.
Bob?
That's tipping me over. More
I mean,
God damn it! I'm so happy that they actually had.
I would say the
rotational
artificial
pseudogravity.
gravity, I will give a separate rating from the loss of gravity. If we split those two things
that'll
up,
make me
that'd
happy.
Make you feel better.
And then
All
we're
right,
being
all right,
kind.
guys. So let's do just the rotational artificial gravity or gravity as depicted on Avalon is a hard science.
Okay.
I'm happy now.
Give
All right.
100, but the loss of gravity is an absolute
Whopper. Totally. All right. Okay, that's fair.
All right, now we're going to move on to the AI. Right, we have an android. We have a bunch of holograms that clearly have an artificial intelligence behind them, or so you think.
You have a computer interface in the that device that would have all the symbols.
That can help you in all sorts of different ways, but actually can't help you at all. So this movie was made in 2016.
You have to say.
Because this was before ChatGPT and all the LLMs came out or whatever. No excuse. I'm sorry. I'm not letting that be an excuse.
Yeah.
But it is interesting because, well, I'll let you keep going. But the bottom line is this is such a science fiction trope, and they missed fixing it by a couple of years. You know what I mean?
No, because why? Look, back in 2016, when no one really understood LLMs and had interacted with them or whatever, you could still say when you're writing science fiction that computer systems in the future and artificial intelligences could actually be intelligent.
Yeah.
So they're talking to the.
But I'm saying it's a trope because so many science fiction movies portray AI, even in the distant future, like all of Star Trek, as way more primitive than it is even now.
Yeah, but when I can't give him a pass on.
I'm not giving him a pass, not at all. But I'm saying
It's not uncommon.
that mistake dated so poorly because it was right on the cusp.
It didn't
that's
look
my
good at
point.
all. It
It
did not look
dated
good.
really poorly. And if you look at reviews from the time, no one's calling them out on it the way we're just about to call them out on it.
All right, so let's dig into some details here.
right.
Let's start with the android bartender. All right, android meaning what? Is an artificial intelligence inside of a human-like body, okay?
Very good. A very good android. I mean, the facial expressions were flawless.
Absolutely, but
And
It
you
was
know,
just, it was just an
we
actor.
don't know how far in the future the movie movie takes place, but it has to be at least hundreds of years to
Yeah.
get to those technological levels.
Hundreds of years. at least.
So, yes, of course they can have an android
We're-
that looks exactly human. They
we're-
don't give a date.
We're 85% of the way there in terms of facial expression, right? I mean, we're.
yeah, it was good.
I mean,
I'm
Yeah,
just-
but it was like there was no uncanny valley. It was a
None.
human actor playing an android. It was flawless.
Yep.
So I'm just,
Which is-
I'm just pointing that out.
which is not unreasonable.
not unreasonable.
and I have to say, the actor they picked is awesome.
Yeah, he was
I
great.
What
loved
else has he
him.
done? I
He,
really,
Bob,
I
he
really
was,
like him.
he was in Twilight as the he is the head evil Venturi bad guy.
Love him.
and what?
and he-
So what character did he remind you of?
Tenant?
No,
But
the bartender from The Shining.
oh yeah,
He was dressed exactly the same.
that's deliberate. That's
That
got
would-
to be deliberate.
we'll give him a little bit of credit. We'll say sure.
All right.
So anyway, so the bartender like was acting very bartendery.
Yeah.
He could talk about, give like kind of soft advice, be there as a kind person, like act like a bartender, he's like polishing glasses that aren't dirty, all that. Okay, I get all that because you want to it's a vibe. But in the end, the artificial intelligence would have been easily a lot more intelligent
Yeah.
than that bartender
It
showed.
wasn't even as good as today. We
Right.
already can do chatbots that are better than what they were
way
portraying.
way better than
Yeah.
that, way better. So I
True.
think but that one didn't bother me that much because first off, I loved that he was in a half android body, which was really
Yeah.
cool. That, I like that they had some movements that were
He's fast.
unnatural, but he was a totally human interface. To be kind and all that stuff, fine. But you go to the ship's computer terminal that's in the the big area, the mall, basically the area where all the people can go around and do shopping and eating and all this stuff, and you have like these stands that are there that is this massive computer interface that has a globe like looking thing where you could basically, hey, I have a medical question, and they'll switch to the medical AI or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So they go up and they're asking for help. We're having problems. The AI is like it's dumber than it ever would have been on a ship like
It's
that.
like a phone tree from 2015.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it
the
was
thing I was just telling Steve was we were
shockingly bad.
discussing it this morning. If a passenger went up to this terminal that's supposed to answer all your questions and you said, "Hey, I'm a passenger on this ship and I'm having an emergency," what should it have done? I could see the general answering, questions getting answered, AI being like, okay, I can't help you with that. I'm going to elevate you to a more intelligent AI. It doesn't have to actually say it, but I'm going to help. I'm going to push you to customer service.
Yeah.
Then it gives you an AI.
like that idea,
that can do things. Like that AI should have been able to listen to him. Hey, I'm awake. I shouldn't be. The AI should have been like, yeah, you should not even be here right now. This is very strange. It should have troubleshot with him a little bit. Then it should have been able to wake up the crew or at least a couple of crew members under extreme emergencies.
Yeah.
Complete and total fail. And I don't care if it was from 2016. This ship was supposed to be exquisite. This was like a quadrillion-dollar futuristic spaceship with phenomenal technologies that we don't have, projecting it into the future. They portrayed AI as they were all dunces.
Yeah.
And it was irritating because it was.
But that's the thing that they said, all right, 200 years from now, let's imagine what AI will be like. And they didn't even project 6 years into the future. Their
Oh my
projection was
God.
obsolete in 6 years.
And this completely reinforces from our book, The Skeptic's Guide to the Future, where you might be able to predict what's going on in the near future to a certain degree, but forget about like going too far into the future. But
if you
they
go-
didn't even do
then-
that.
Yeah, if you go far enough, you just say, okay, they have AI. AI is indistinguishable from human interaction
Yeah.
at that point. Why would? But they had to make the audience feel like it's an AI or it's a robot.
But they could have, Steve, like every other problem in this movie. The AI, sure, there was dumb versions of the AI, like the holographic AIs. They were instructors and all that. Those aren't the AIs you're going to talk to if you have a problem.
Right.
They had to teach people. They were on a script. But if they elevated it to an intelligent AI, and then the AI says to him, I can't access those systems.
Yeah.
The system
he
is damaged.
goes to like the computer core. Like then at one point he has an interaction with essentially
Yes.
the real
the
computer.
real computer, and that was completely unhelpful.
You're right.
It could answer questions like Google can, like where are we? Oh, well, here we are. But it didn't understand anything and didn't. Yeah, nothing was triggered.
They completely blew it.
All right, let's talk about let's rate the AI, and then this is going to bleed right into my next topic.
All right,
This
so-
is just one part of a huger problem with the movie.
All right, so the bartender, I think he's fine.
Yeah,
we
yeah,
don't need
the
to rate
the
it.
android.
Yeah,
The android for his role, like the cooks, the chefs, the people bringing out the plates and all that stuff. They don't have to be super intelligent, but the ship's core help me robot, or help me interface.
But we can just say how was AI overall depicted
Yes.
in the movie?
It was a whopper.
Whopper. It was
It was-
really
it was
bad.
frustrating.
But it's part of a bigger, deeper problem
Yes, it
that
is.
I have with the movie and the writers and how lazy it was. And that is, so you have a super advanced, very expensive ship that people are paying a lot of money to ride on, and it has to function by itself for 120 years.
Of course.
That you would think that the self-maintenance contingencies would be off the hook.
Yeah, they
Right.
would
Right.
have android workers on there.
Where were all the robots?
Right.
We see basically two robots, a bartender and Roombas.
Yes, that's it.
Where were the maintenance robots?
I know. They
He
were
had to go
on-
out onto the ship himself outside in order to open a hatchway.
And wait, and also like when he deconstructs the keypad to get into the bridge, no robots showed up to clean it up and to fix it.
Yeah.
Which they'd have to. There would have to be physical robots that can move
Again, the
about.
ship was glitching, so any particular failure you could say was a glitch, but that they're nowhere in evidence. There's no
Yeah.
maintenance
Right.
robots or anything.
And it could have been, they wouldn't have had to spend a dime on this. He could have been in the computer reading. He goes, oh, all of the repair maintenance robots are down. They're not functioning. They're not
Yeah.
even coming out.
Something.
That's all they had
Right.
to do.
But that said, though, I think you should address the fact that the ship was automated to a certain degree.
It was.
Of rerouting,
It was.
and it was doing some
Yeah.
slick things.
But Bob, there's
but
like,
it couldn't
it's a
deal with
physical-
it couldn't deal with a true disaster that required troubleshooting.
I'll
That's
give
the
you an
problem.
example. The door to the fusion reactor to get to outgas it was broken. What do? You're going to send a human down that tunnel to fix that? They had no robots to go and do it, and they clearly had the
And
technology.
he was just sort of manually opening the door. There wasn't a manual override from inside. All right, but here's the thing. So the meteor takes out the computer that is regulating the fusion reactor.
Right.
Right? And that one computer, now is the other computer systems in the ship have to take over the functionality for that one computer.
Right,
And,
and
that causes a cascading failure because now they're all overworked.
You're right.
And
That's
they burn
the bottom
out.
line. That's the
they
bottom
burn
line.
out, which then keeps increasing the load on all the other computers, which I kind of like the idea that this is like the Titanic, right? There's some definitely Titanic vibes here where you have an arrogant corporation, the unsinkable ship, right? This is like,
Arrogant is right.
there's these cryopods never fail. We've never had a failure.
Infallible, yes.
They're infallible, so we don't need any backup. We don't need any contingency, nothing. It's just they don't fail. That is like taken as an absolute given, which is crazy.
It is crazy.
That there would be no contingency for that. But, the ship is now having this cascading failure, and none of the AI aboard the ship seems to know. Right? There's no reaction. There's no, like, when this happens, we wake up the crew.
Right.
Or whatever, or something. What happens? They say, we have backup spare parts for everything, but nobody to install them.
There's no robots to do it.
If
and
one
there's
of
nobody
the
with-
5,000 cryopods didn't fail as part of the glitch, which is also kind of like, really? That was just that one.
5,200 plus people would have died.
Then the whole ship would have been lost.
Yep.
Right.
If it weren't for that one cryopod itself glitching. And not only that, there would be so many backup systems, and there would be 5, 6, 7 levels of backup systems already in place,
Right.
ready to kick in.
And-
you can't lose one computer and have it catastrophically fail
Right.
the entire ship.
I mean, one great backup, which I think would have been totally reasonable, is to wake up a couple of people from the crew, and they do like a 6-month-long stint on the ship for crazy stuff that's unpredictable, that humans are great
Right,
at
then they
dealing with.
rotate to the next two
The AI is
people.
clearly not up to task. And then after a few months or so, then 2 more people. So at the end of your trip, maybe they've been up for a couple of years. So what?
But they can't put people back into
Well, that's
suspension.
stupid. That's another stupid problem. First of all, they
Oh,
can.
my God.
Right? They can. The
Autodoc does
The
it.
Autodoc can do it. So clearly it can be done.
Right. And
So
yeah,
it
doesn't need a huge mechanism.
Right,
Like
they contradicted their own premise that you can't put somebody back into cryo on the ship. You obviously can. So why weren't there emergency backup cryopods
And
that you
it-
could?
and if
do?
they- if
and
they-
why was there only one Autodoc
and they
for
could-
That's
5,000 people?
ridiculous.
There
Yeah.
should have been
ridiculous.
hundreds of them.
Yeah. Or at least 20 or something.
All right,
Yeah,
but
just
but
something.
they could have had a part of the ship where people could be put back into
Yeah.
suspension, right? Because they say in the movie, "Oh, you remember that big facility we were in?
Yeah.
They did all that stuff and all blah blah blah." They made it seem like there's like a football field size of equipment that needs to be
Right.
there in order to do it. They could have had a part of the ship that did it, and it just got physically damaged.
That's the thing.
Right.
This is the simple way to make all these problems go away, is just to have the damage to the ship be more profound, right? That grain of sand that went through the entire ship, maybe it took out the computer core or like multiple like banks of computers, and now the ship is really struggling with peripheral computers. Like, why would the Roombas fail? Because of the central computer was
Right.
stressed.
Exactly.
The Roombas don't have independent
They'd be autonomous
AI?
to a high degree. They're just
yeah.
Roombas.
Again,
Jesus.
the chunky AI in the bartender, does that really need the ship's central computer, for him to like clean glasses and chit chat with
Right.
They would have been way more independent. But again, just if they could have just said, all right, what do we need to have damaged to make this plot work? If they just asked that question, and that grain of sand destroyed all the systems they need destroyed, and that's the kind of contrivance I'll forgive, because you need to create the
Yeah,
plot of the movie.
that's a gimme.
That's fine. Yeah, that's a total gimme. Fine. Okay, it took out these systems. It took out, put a hole through the place in the ship where you go back into cryo. It took out so much of the computer system that the ship is really struggling, and it can't do all the things it should have done. All the contingencies that would have been like waking up the crew or having repair bots swap out that's all failing.
And they missed this cool thing that because I thought there was a laggy, boring part of this movie in the first third of the movie, right? They could have had the main character, what's his face? I forget the character's name.
Jim Preston.
Yeah, they could have had Jim science the shit out of fixing
Well, I
things and
think
figuring things out. They went there a little bit, but they totally blew a cool opportunity to show him flexing, his engineering skills.
Well, even if you wanted to keep the basic plot of the movie, you have a point in the movie where the crew member actually wakes up, right? Lawrence Fishburne. And now he is now downloading us as to what happened. So you could have had, the two main characters living within the bubble, the passenger bubble of the ship,
Right.
having no idea how catastrophically
And no
damaged the ship
access.
is, and no access to it.
Right.
Right. They're living in the part of the ship that is designed not to be alerted to the fact that the ship is about to blow up.
Yeah,
right.
none of those people are admins,
Right,
for the
they're
ship.
living in the passenger luxury bubble. Fine. And then Lawrence Fishburne wakes up. He's crew, and he's like, "What the hell's going on?" And he starts like, "Oh my God, all these things are failed. Why wasn't the crew woken up? Why wasn't this happening? Look at this system is failing. That system is failing." And then we get the explanation for everything that we need an explanation for.
He could have
Right at
covered
that
all
point
of
in
it.
the movie, they could have created whatever situation they needed for the plot just by enough damage. But that's why the laziness is inexcusable.
It is
It is
inexcusable.
absolutely inexcusable.
Yeah.
All right.
Wow,
So
I mean, it's funny. Us reviewing this movie is making me change my opinion. Really, I mean, I enjoyed watching it.
because if you don't think about anything and just sort of enjoy the
Yeah,
characters and the
it's
story,
fine,
it's
but,
fine. I watched
that-
it a second time. Now, when you
Yeah.
watch it a second time, looking for stuff, it's like, oh my God,
Yeah.
this is horrible.
All right, so we're talking about the ship's self-maintenance.
Ship's lack of adequate self-maintenance to believably be
Reasonable,
self-maintenance
yes.
for 120 years of interstellar travel
Over a century.
is all right.
ready
guys
to do
ready?
this?
Yeah.
This is we're gonna rate it.
Oh.
It's
a whopper. This is, I
man.
think, personally the biggest
That was
whopper.
Yeah,
yeah.
it's pretty bad.
Of them
And like you
all.
said, the more you think about that, the more you're like, come on, man! It wouldn't have taken that much effort to
They didn't think
to
about it. They
wipe
didn't-
away all of these problems that we're having.
What?
with it.
Yeah, it was,
Right,
it was
now-
a sloppy, lazy script. It was not tight.
Let's click over to the suspended animation pods.
Okay.
I thought they looked cool. I've seen
Beautiful.
versions of this in other movies. The movie Aliens had cool, like those are more cryopods, I think. But these
Yeah.
are not. You're not frozen.
You're not
here.
frozen.
This is suspended animation.
Yeah,
True.
hibernate. They call it
Right.
hibernation at one point.
All right, so they weren't frozen, so they're at room temperature. And the ways that I've read, people speculating on whether or not this would be possible in the future. I've read many times that they would have to be suspended in a liquid. And then you need nanomachines as well. Like, it's not just the liquid that they're suspended in, but you would need something maintaining the tissues of the people that are there.
Yeah.
They don't get into any of this. I mean, they look like when Jim gets out of suspended animation, it happens way way too fast. Like
Right.
it's way too
yeah,
fast.
I mean,
he
do a montage. Give us something to let us know that some time has passed before he's actually with it in any way after being suspended for decades.
That would have been a cool point of interest too. Like maybe there was this weird process that they have to go through where he's on a conveyor belt and it's like it takes 3 weeks for him to come out the other end of this process to get people out of suspension.
Yeah.
So-
but them waking up with a puff of air and some medication being
And he's like,
injected
whoa.
into them.
Yeah.
That said, I did love because they rarely show anything really happening in these pods. I love the thing pops up like shot, gives him 3
Yeah,
shots.
great. I like
and then
that.
the thing's on his hands. So there was a little little techno wizardry happening. Not nearly enough that you would think would be really required. But I like that they just showed
Yes.
something that other movies just don't show
And
at all.
here's the thing.
Yeah.
So first of all, I think visually something much closer to the Matrix would have been better. Like you have a tube down your throat.
Yes,
Something's breathing
yes,
for you.
The Matrix.
You got nutrition
Oh,
going
man,
in, stuff
yes.
coming out.
They didn't seem to be
You didn't
breathing.
need- you didn't
they
need to be
didn't seem to be
jacked in.
breathing, and
Right.
it looked like they started his heart again when he
Oh,
got
yeah.
him out of it.
Well,
He was
I
inanimate.
yeah, I mean, I was looking at that. He could have just been breathing really slow.
But 30 years and not even a
Well, it's
5
hard to
o'clock
make-
shadow?
Yeah, but then, so how are you maintaining the cells though?
That's the problem.
Doesn't
That's,
work.
that's the
This doesn't
problem.
work.
That's the problem
It's
with
hard-
this magical
Plus-
suspended animation.
You know, what about all the bacteria in them? What's happening with those? Why wouldn't they just eat
Well,
whatever?
they're suspended
proliferate
too. They have to be suspended or
cleanse or something? So
You don't want them
At
gone,
least
though.
they say
We
there was
need-
an
we
elaborate
need that.
procedure to go into
Right.
the hibernation. Okay, so there's an elaborate procedure. Fine.
Yeah, but
and they didn't want it to be messy, and they wanted them to wake up all sexy and everything. So I get it, but
this wasn't a short movie.
Yeah, it wasn't a short
They
movie.
took their time on so many things. They could have shown a process to bring
that
him
was
out.
really messy.
Yes.
They absolutely could have done that, and that would have made it more believable
Yes.
that you can't go back into
Exactly,
suspension
yeah.
halfway through the
Yes.
trip. You make it really obvious that this is like, you can't freaking just go back into a tank, whatever. There's all kinds of stuff has to happen.
Right. They just explain that away with a sentence or two. But if
Yeah.
they showed something that was complex, that's what that needed.
Yes.
Because all the time in the back of your head, you're like, dude, they just gave you 3 shots to pull you
Yeah.
out. How hard is it to put
Yeah.
you back in?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I agree that some really super complicated process, something really creative. They could have really flexed their creative muscle
Look,
by
I-
saying, let's do something really
That's the
creative
thing
with
when
this
you
suspended
when
animation.
when you acknowledge the problems and you come up with a creative
Yes.
solution, it improves the science fiction, it improves the
Exactly.
storytelling.
It makes it more interesting.
Everything.
Look, you need nanotechnology, and that's it.
Something, yeah.
You
Something
would have to
dramatic.
have it to maintain all of the cells in the body and to keep things functioning, and also de-aging. And you're right, Bob. He was in there for 30 years and no beard growth. He was in total suspended animation.
Yeah,
And the
total.
only way we know
He
how
didn't
to
have
do
a day's
that,
beard growth.
nothing.
Not a
He was like
day.
it looked
Yeah.
exactly like the way he did when he put him in. The only way to do that is to theoretically stop time for them, and the way to do that would be that they have to be frozen.
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't even pick. They should have had them be frozen.
Or if you're gonna, so this is I'm personally leaning towards gimme on this because it's such a common trope.
Right.
But if you're gonna do the magic gimme, why not have be temporal stasis? Like time literally stops inside
Right.
those chambers. That's really the only way to fully solve this
Essentially,
problem.
it was
Right.
that. It
But it was
basically-
biological hibernation. It was not temporal stasis.
But the way that they played it in the movie, it seemed more temporal than anything else.
But no.
It wasn't. I'm just saying though,
Yeah.
they behaved.
Yeah, that was
as
the
if it
effect.
temporal. Yeah.
That was the effect. That's what I'm saying. If you want that effect, then use that mechanism. Don't make it
But-
like biological hibernation, but makes no sense
Right.
because it's 30 years, but he didn't age a day, and there's way too little biological support going on. And is his heart stopped or not stopped? Is it just slow? Is he breathing
Yeah.
or not breathing?
Yeah.
It's such a
It-
trope, though. Is it more gimme territory than?
I'm willing to give it a gimme
Because
I've been hard on the movie.
Everybody
and
does
because everybody does it. It was absolutely necessary for the plot.
It was.
And what they pulled off was better than other hibernation units in other movies.
They added a couple of other little bells and whistles.
Which I appreciated, because you don't see anything like that, and you don't see enough of that. So, all right.
He's up and walking moments after he.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's,
all right,
but that's
let's vote
common,
on
man.
this
That's
one,
common,
guys.
man.
All
All right,
right.
so let's going to vote
The
on
cryo
it.
is
Cryo
It's
is
not cryo. It's suspended.
Suspended
animation.
animation.
Suspended animation
Is
gimme.
Gimme. I'll give it a gimme.
Wabagimme.
Okay. All right. So
Very
wow.
quickly, the auto dock.
Auto dock. Yeah.
What is it? What is it, Steve?
So it's basically you go into this chamber and it's a all automatic AI run diagnostic and therapeutic procedural.
It's basically
med bay.
a doctor and a bunch of surgeons and,
like an
and
emergency
medicine
room
and everything all built
in a
into one
tube.
thing.
Yeah.
We've seen these before.
Yeah.
in other movies.
And this was well done. I mean, in terms of comparing it to other movies, I think this is one of my favorite autodocs. Not in animation, because there's some good ones in animation, but live action autodocs looked good. I appreciated.
My big problem, kind of a
design.
couple of nitpicks with it. One is, why is there only one? For
Yeah,
a ship of
that's-
5,000 plus people, you're going to have one autodoc.
Yeah, but
You
we
don't
know
even have
why
a
there was-
backup.
we know why
I
there
know
was
why
one.
there was one. There had to only be one for plot reasons. And again, they made a dumb choice in
Right.
terms of, again, the other ones could have been destroyed. Again, throw them into the, got only one survived,
Right.
you know?
Don't forget though, you've got 5,200 people. Probably all the passengers. I mean, are in like perfect health. And right? He was the autodoc said you're in perfect health. I think everyone by definition would have to be in exceptional health. So that kind of makes it a
on.
little
no,
bit.
one is hazardous.
One is,
It's
yeah.
crazy.
So that was a problem. And then the AI, the same problem I have with all the other AI. It was not smart enough, independent enough. Like really, like I can't do anything without a doctor present. Really? Really? You're an emergency auto doc and you can't do emergency procedures without a human present? That's kind of your purpose?
ridiculous.
And why would it conclude that it can't save him and almost start the autopsy?
Yeah.
And then, but if you have the authorization, I'll save him then. It's like, wait a second. I mean,
yeah,
right?
So you're going to choose to let someone die when you could have easily saved.
Again, it was a dumb AI problem.
It was terrible.
dumb
That was-
AI.
yeah,
and
that
then
was
just,
kinda silly.
I would have preferred more gadgetry and stuff. Like
Sure, man. I mean, throw some.
just like light and
CG
things. I mean, diagnostically fine, but if you're gonna if that's really an auto doc, like can that thing do surgery? Like you would expect more invasive, stuff
Definitely.
going on.
Right.
there.
I would have liked to. As fun as it was in terms of it was better and more elaborate than other autodocs I've seen
Yeah.
in live action. But yeah, they could have. I would have done 10 times the techno gadgets
Oh,
all
yeah,
over the
yeah,
place.
it would need to be-
Because this thing would have to do basically. Imagine it. Any injury or surgery that's reasonable, it should be able to do, and that's
I would
a
have
lot of
preferred it to
tech.
be more like a back to tank. That to me makes more sense than him lying on a table with your clothes on and all that. Like,
And why weren't there androids there too? Doctor
Of
androids.
course,
They have the
yes.
android technology to make a really convincing, very functional android, and they use it for one thing: the freaking
Right.
bartender.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
We're not asking for emergency medical holograms, right? We're asking for just a robot surgeon that could help out a bit.
Yeah. So.
Oh boy.
And of course, there's the big plot thing at the end where like the auto doc can put you back into
Oh my
suspended
God.
animation, which broke the whole premise that you can't go back into preservation on the ship without an elaborate procedure. They broke the core premise of the freaking movie.
I know.
Just to create another dilemma at the end, which I get it from a storytelling point of view. Like she had to decide if she was going to go back in or spend her life with him. I get that,
Yeah.
but they
get
should
it
have
too.
they should have gotten us to that point better. Like again,
Right.
with more stuff destroyed. So like,
Right.
we only have one auto dock left.
Yes,
And,
yes.
The cryo chamber was destroyed. Like a big hole through it. Whatever. So like, but there's this one little thread left. One of us can get
Lazy-
through to it.
lazy
writing, easily solved.
Right, could have got there from another but more realistic route than they took.
So that aside, the auto dock itself, what are you guys going to call it? I'm going to call it.
Wait,
Think about it.
I mean, if Android showed up and all that, I would be more leaning towards soft.
I'm willing to give it soft, I think.
yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I,
guess so,
mean,
I
yeah,
guess so.
it was narratively it
It
was
didn't break the laws of
problematic.
physics, at least.
Right,
It was
so yeah,
lazy
absolutely,
writing was still
absolutely.
woven in there. But all
Okay,
right,
let's
ready?
do it. Ready?
The auto
So
dock is soft
science.
science.
Okay.
All right, do you want to do the whole movie?
Yes.
The gestalt of the
Oh,
movie?
cool.
I mean, I think it's the easy call.
Yeah.
It was like, it was one soft, one hard,
Yeah.
one gimme,
And a bunch of
everything
whoppers.
else was all right. So overall, Passengers, it was kind of, if you suspend all scientific thinking,
I enjoyed it.
You
It
have
was-
to turn off your frontal lobe to enjoy
a
it.
little bit. Just as a storytelling, acting, eye candy, I enjoyed it.
absolutely.
But once you start to think about the science, this movie had massive problems. I think overall, I'm going to give the movie a whopper.
yeah.
This was a
Greasy,
giant.
reheated in the microwave. Freaking the ketchup dried. You scraped it off. You put new ketchup on it. You bite into it, and it sucked. Whopper.
Whopper.
That's what
but
that
still,
was.
but still, it was beautiful. The production values were
Sure.
off the hook. We might not see
But-
those production values for a long time because
but-
it didn't do well. And
but-
Jennifer Lawrence was
She was amazing.
superb.
But
superb.
we have to look at this movie though in a different light as well, because of what we do here, guys. This movie's our enemy. Why is it our enemy? Bob?
Well,
it's our enemy because it ruined future funding for movies that want to talk about these types of things.
Yeah.
Here's a question which we can't answer. If the movie fixed all these lazy writing problems we're talking about, would it have done better in the box office?
I don't necessarily think so. I mean,
I don't know, maybe.
I don't know.
I'm going to choose to believe yes.
One of the problems I came across is the moral choice that he makes, the
Yeah.
character makes in pulling her out. A lot of people found that really distasteful, apparently. I came across that a couple of times.
Come on.
I mean, I agree. That's ridiculous.
They
Agreed.
sold it well. Let's talk about that for 1 second. They sold that well enough on both ends.
They
So first of
totally
all,
did.
he was alone for a year. He was mentally broken.
They didn't,
Yeah.
And he
I get it.
agonized for months. And in a moment of weakness, he just couldn't bear. Now, maybe they could have sold that a little bit more.
they
I can tell you
sold it,
how
though.
they could.
They
Because
sold
I'll
it.
tell you when.
But they
I
sold
had
it
no
enough.
idea.
Yes, agreed.
When we found out he was in a year, I was shocked to hear that. They needed to show him with the date, a calendar, or him doing
or just
how many days
losing
have
his
gone
shit
by.
a little bit more.
But they
Some
didn't
of those
show
scenes
the
were
passage
cut.
of time.
I
All
saw
we
cut
saw
scenes.
was a beard. All we saw was a beard.
Yeah.
Well, there were other signs that a lot of time was going by, and they
Right.
did show him like trying to entertain himself. Then he's like eating the cereal, with the long beard, and he was clearly done. And then he tries to kill himself, right? So he was on the brink of suicide.
Oh, he was damn close.
So I think they sold it enough.
I agree.
But you could have even sold it more. And then I also think Jennifer Lawrence really sold how angry she would have been
Oh
at being
my
awakened.
God.
And I also think she sold the turning point where she faced that moment. It's like, oh my God, if he dies out there, I'm going to live my entire life by myself. She realized how absolutely horrifying that was. And in that moment, understood why he made the decision he made and forgave him.
Yep.
Right.
I
And
agree.
And he also saved her life and freaking everybody
Yeah.
else.
So to me, that was the strong point of the movie, was that storytelling.
no,
arc.
I liked
Yeah,
it.
it was.
I
And
liked
I think the movie didn't do well for other reasons. One reason is attributed to even the name, Passengers. What's that about? I think the marketing and promotion kind of could have been, that kills a lot of movies. That might
But
have
usually
been
word of mouth overcomes that if it's a
True,
genuinely great
true.
movie.
true.
So I don't know.
It wasn't a great movie. It
I think
was not a
the
great
lazy
movie.
writing, I think, probably gave it a hit.
10% more effort, I think, could have made this a classic.
great
At least in
movie.
our estimation.
And
if
guys,
not-
when you're spending over $300 million on a freaking
my
movie, you
God.
need that extra 10%.
oh yeah,
And again, this is a problem that we, I think, generally have with Hollywood for all the genres of movies that we review. You spend $300 million on name actors, on special effects, on massive production value, and then you cheap out on the writing. Like you didn't just hire a couple of extra writers and consultants and like say, all right, let's go through this again and spend a month like tweaking the crap out of this script. They don't think it's that important, but it is. Over and over again, we learn that it is, but they just, I don't know what the disconnect is.
Steve, they started shooting the newer newer episodes of Star Wars. They started shooting them before they had a complete script.
I know.
Like that happens. They will invest the money, and the script is an afterthought, which blows my mind.
all right.
How many times, collectively, do audience need to tell Hollywood, good writing matters? We reward good writing, we punish bad writing. How many times that have to happen?
It's a
just
business
the
to make money, Steve.
I know, but it's like, why do these low production value movies are these massive hits? Gee, I wonder if it had to do with the fact that the writing was really inventive and new and good and interesting. It's like, oh, let's just duplicate that and we'll get another hit. It's like, no, you can't just duplicate, right? It's like, that was really innovative and new. Let's do it again. It's like, that doesn't work.
And they had good premises going into it. They really had cool, interesting, unique premises in this situation. It was like
they did not milk it for what it was worth.
No, they really didn't know what they were sitting on.
Yeah.
They clearly did not look at it like, wow, there is a lot.
And I hate that. That's a great idea and an execution fail. I hate that.
You said it though, Steve. The best part of this movie was the human intrigue.
Yeah,
and it usually is. It's the relationships.
Yeah.
It's the internal.
They did the hard part.
Yeah,
in a way.
They were there.
Right.
They had the good stuff, and they just it bothers me that again we see this happen every year over and over and over again. We could literally say hundreds of billions of dollars are being wasted on movies that could have been so much better if they just gave a little bit more time and attention. That's why we're here, folks. We're here to mop up these messes, right? Guys, if you enjoy Alpha Quadrant 6, this is Season 3. This is the science in science fiction. And if you enjoy it, you can become a patron of ours. You can go to patreon.com/Alpha Quadrant and the number 6. You can also go to Alpha Quadrant and the number 6.com if you'd like to interface with us more, send us information, emails, whatever you got, suggestions. We'd love to hear what you guys want us to do. This season 3 is not going to last forever, so if you want us to rip apart a movie that you like, check out the science. We're here to do it.
Because you won't like it when we're done with
Yeah,
it.
be careful what you wish for.
We'll see you next week.